May the smile on your face come straight from your heart. Takes a lady like you to write that for me.
Do you think that people have come to kind of expect that from autobiography, like a certain amount of serious honesty? Serious? Intense honesty, embarrassing honesty.
Well, I think autobio is always attractive to people because when they know it's a real story, they're going to identify with it, regardless of if it has anything to do with any of their personal experiences. They're always going to find something to identify with just by it being real.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard only bad stereotypes about autobiography, which is, I mean, kind of equivalent to Facebook posts where you're just telling so much minutia that no one's going to care.
But I kind of enjoy those too, just the diary strips. It's I ate a hamburger and I went to sleep. I don't know, those are kind of nice too.
It depends on how they draw the hamburger.
Do you think that as far as web, I think all of you are pretty web print straddling. You kind of touched on that. But do you think that those maybe I ate a hamburger today, we're going to see those more on the web necessarily, or do you think that they exist across the spectrum?
I mean, I do it for both. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's certainly, you don't have to worry about putting money into something that you put on the internet. It's you can have a website for free that you put your comics on, and people can see it. It's far more of a risk when you're printing a book and there's, some financial stuff on the line. But I've never, I don't read that many webcomics either, actually, so it's kind of a little funny dichotomy.
Yeah, right when I graduated college, I read a lot of webcomics, and it seemed to be split down the middle between a lot of slice of life, every single day comics about exactly what was happening, like James Kachalka and a couple other ones I used to read that were just straight up slice of life, and then there were other ones that were huge, involved, ongoing stories that went on and on and on and on, and I think those people still really enjoy those kind of webcomics today because they're just checking in with their favorite characters for eternity, and it's really involving. So I've seen both. I'm not sure what the ratio is now, but I would assume it'd be easier to do really straight up day in the life of comics every day or frequently, but I'm not sure.
In theory, I can see how that might happen because especially with webcomics, you're encouraged to put out with regular output. I mean, when I started doing Estrus magazine, I did it from '97 to I think the last one was in 2009, and there was a 2-year gap between two of those. I mean, so it wasn't very regular. I was doing it as the inspiration came, which I think probably made it better, but also didn't accelerate how much better I got over time.
So yeah, what about the other two of you? What about the time element of webcomics and putting them out more regularly? Does that change the way you work, or has it?
Well, I've never really adhered to a set schedule, just because, like I said, I never really, I don't think of myself as primarily a web cartoonist. It's kind of more oh, if I drew a comic this week, I'll put it on my website. So when there's big lags and something like that, it's probably, hopefully, because I'm working on something longer and not just because I'm sleeping with my cats all the time. But that happens too.
Yeah, I'm with you, Liz. I definitely feel like I'm print and web, and I'm pretty bad at regularly updating, and I know that's death to most webcomics artists. If you don't have a schedule, and God forbid you have once a week, they pretty much say you'll lose half your audience every time, and I have over the years. But I don't know, it just depends on what I can handle, what I can handle putting out that I feel I want to put out. I don't just want to throw anything up there just to keep people coming back. I kind of want to think about it a little bit, so sometimes it takes longer, but I acknowledge that sometimes people then just immediately forget about me.
You know what's also kind of interesting about the internet the information superhighway, as they used to call it, is that there'll be times where I'll post a comic and I'll be like, I feel like this is one of the best comics that I've ever drawn, and no one pays attention to it. And then I have, like, you know, some strips that I have drawn that I'm like, this one's kind of throwaway, but like if I haven't posted something for a while and I need to just put something up, I'll put that up there. And those are always the ones that get the most attention, that like end up on Reddit, and I get like 4,000 more hits on my website because of them. So it's kind of hard to tell like what people are actually looking for when they read comics on the internet.
And it hasn't helped doing it for a while?
No. Farts are great. That's great source of
Well, everyone likes torture. So like how does the web, and I mean we've touched on this a little bit, but do you, kind of each of you want to explain how the webcomics fit into your print comics? Like, do your webcomics become your print comics, or are they two completely separate things? Like I know you do the reviews, so yeah.
I would like them all to be printed eventually. I mean, anything that doesn't get published by someone else, I'll probably self-publish. I just really like holding comics in my hand. Like if I stare at the screen for more than a couple minutes at a time, I just go, I should be working or something. But if I'm turning pages, it feels like I'm doing something. Yeah.
I kind of forgot what the question was.
What's the relationship between like web and print? Like, do your web comics, are they always going to become print comics, or are they sometimes like just experiments, or?
Yeah, for the most part, everything that I put on the internet is for print eventually. The Alone Forever comics, I like to self-publish minis of those when I feel like I have enough to like fill a book, because self-publishing is something that's really important to me, and I actually prefer it to having a publisher. And with the longer story that I'm working on, like that's something that will never be serialized on the internet. So I like having a project that is like strictly for print, and then things that I can put on the internet just to like keep people aware that I exist still.
I think in the past, I always just thought that the main output would be a book no matter what I did. And now I have 2 strips that I put online, and I'm comfortable with that, just putting all of them out there. But then you always kind of wonder if people will bother, if they read it online, why would they bother to buy the book? I know that I prefer buying books even when I've read the entire story online. I just, like, you know, Mary said, I just like having something to hold, and I like something to look back on, and something more portable. And I think like the iPad is really helping people like carry around webcomics a lot more, and I like that, but I still prefer books. So my main method is still, it's probably going to end up in print, but then there are still stories that I do that if I know I have a whole complete story, like I'm working on one right now that's going to be 24 pages, and I'm not sure if I should put it up online first, or if I should just put a couple pages and then eventually have the book out. I haven't decided yet if that is a deterrent or not, if I should just make it only print or web first.
I actually recently was wondering about this with my Rumpus comics, which I have enough for a book, and I was like, should I do this? Is anyone going to want this? And I ended up doing an online poll, and there was only one person who said, no, don't bother publishing it. Like, I got tons of people saying, of course you should have it published, and I want it, like, I only read things very cursory, like on the internet, and I'll read it again and again if it's in a book, so that's just what I got.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I think there are definitely a bunch of people that really are still really tied to that tangible thing. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of fun in serialized webcomics, but yeah, I think if you enjoy the story and you like the characters, then you definitely want to have that physical thing to go back to.
Hopefully we're not so far removed from that generation of people that didn't grow up with the internet, right. So that like people still kind of have that little like collector fetish thing going on.
Hopefully for us, right?
Yeah.
What about kind of ebooks and e-publishing and all that? Do you like?
I have very little experience with that. I think I've only read one book as an ebook. And it's okay, but it wasn't a comic book, so I'm not sure. I know there's a whole bunch of apps now that have come out for specific publishers, I guess, and I haven't checked any of them out, so I should probably stop talking.
It's It's funny, people have been like, why don't you have like a Liz Prince app for the iPhone? And I'm like, well, isn't it just called the internet? You can read it on your phone. But it's just like, all that stuff is getting smaller and smaller, and it's kind of like, you know, it's a little depressing that people are like, I want to read your comics on my phone so I can see it this big. It's like, cool. Eventually I'll just be like, hey, send $5 for a transcript, and I'll just be like, describe what's happening in this video of my episode.
I don't know.
It's a fair
I'm actually in the middle of like, should I, shouldn't I, ebook thing. I mean, it's not for me, but I understand. The other day, an agent told me that because Kiss and Tell hasn't come out as an ebook because of a bureaucracy thing that I actually prevented it from being an ebook. But now I'm like starting to have second thoughts, so I don't know. But an agent told me that not putting out a book in ebook is like being a musician and not coming out with MP3s. So that made me really think about stuff, and that was like 2 days ago. So I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I should do that, because I have friends who they only read things on Kindle now. So I don't know.
World sucks.
The smile on your face comes straight from your heart. If you look, you will find. And you wrote that for me.
Listen to your woman, but not closely.